Short exercise 2-11, we're going to create a chart of accounts. So Kaya Mechanics has the following accounts. You can view the accounts here, they're in no particular order. So create a chart of accounts for Kaya Mechanics using the standard numbering system. Each account is separated by a factor of 10. So if cash is like 100, then the next account would be 110. And the reason they try to leave numbers in between is in case later you have to add accounts in between them. For example, the first asset account will be 100 and the next asset will be 110, which would mean the next one is 120. So use the first available line under each section, asset, liabilities, etc. when selecting the accounts. If an input field is not used, leave the field empty. Do not select any labels. In other words, when we're doing our liabilities, don't put the first liability here on the second line. So let's first start by finding our assets. We have a maximum of 3 assets. Just because there's 3 lines doesn't mean we have to fill them all. So accounts payable here, the first one, that is a liability. However, the next one, cash, is definitely an asset. So we're going to start with this first asset account of 100, and that'll be cash. So what else is an asset here? So utilities expense, that is an expense, not an asset. However, automotive supplies, that is an asset. So this next field here will be 110. As they say, they go up by 10 here for each account. So we'll put in automotive supplies here next as the next asset. And that would be things like oil and rags and stuff that we'll be using. And then next on our list, service revenue is not an asset. However, equipment, the one afterwards, is. So since this is going up by 10, this next one will be 120, and equipment will be our next asset, and then our assets section here is full. And if you want to do this part properly here, remember assets are listed in the order of liquidity, so which means these will be used up or converted into cash first at the top. And our automotive supplies and our equipment, well, we're going to use those. Our automotive supplies will most likely be first, so we'll list that next, and then our equipment last here. So now we're looking at liabilities here next. So our liabilities start with 200. Go ahead and input that. And we're going to go through our accounts list. So accounts payable, our first one, that is a liability. So we'll input that first. And that's always the first liability. And let's see if we have any other liabilities on our list. So here we go. Let's keep looking. Unearned revenue. Remember, unearned revenue is a liability. In fact, I had an instructor tip that should have popped up. That's reminding you that we learned that when a customer prepays us for giving them a service, it's considered unearned revenue until the service is given. So if a customer comes in and says, fix my car, and they pay us ahead of time, we can't consider that revenue until we have actually given them the service. So until we give them the service, we owe them that service. Therefore, unearned revenue is a liability. So that next one will be 210. So unearned revenue. And then we have our equity section, which will be 300. And that's going to be capital. So let's see what they call the capital account here. So that's Kaya Capital here. And then we have the draws account here, the Kaya withdrawals, and that will be 310 since we are going up by 10 between each account. So we'll put Kaya withdrawals here under equity. And then we're going to move down to revenues here. So let's see how many revenues we have. It looks like we just have service revenue here. So the revenues start with 400. And that is going to be service revenue. And remember, revenues always start with a 4. And then unearned revenue is a liability. So don't put unearned revenue here under the revenue section. And then we've got our expenses section here. So these are easy. They can be listed in any order. So I'll just list them in the order that we find them. So we have utilities expense first. And remember, these expenses always start at 5 here. So we'll go ahead and put 500 to start. And then our next one will be 510 if we have more expenses. So let's see. We have advertising expense as the word expense there. So that's going to be 510. Advertising expense. So let's go ahead and close out of our table and check our answer. Fantastic.